you for coming out to Fall 2022 Talent Poetry Launch. I appreciate your live presence, and I also give a shout out and appreciate everybody who's on the live stream, if there are people on the live stream. I'm Kevin Lids, I'm the publisher at Talonbooks, and normally at this moment I would choose to ramble, but we've got a big program tonight, so I'm going to cut to the chase and introduce our wonderful and dynamic host, Mercedes Eng. She's the author of 3 really wonderful Talonbooks: Mercenary English, Prison Industrial Complex, which I believe on the BC Book Award, I'm not correct, and My Web Mama. I mean, if you haven't read that book, you know, buy it, sit down. So many people told me they read it in one sitting. Boom, funny, deep, wonderful, punchy. And if you've never seen her reading it, she did a fantastic reading of it right here in Pyatt Hall. So without further ado, because I'm rambling, Mercedes Eng.
Hey everyone, and hey everyone on the live stream. So I'm Mercedes Eng, local poet, nervous, so reading off a piece of paper. So I'm joining you here from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, who lived in kinship with this land of water and air for thousands of years. I hope that we can recognize and acknowledge their leadership and our own complicity in settler colonialism, its present occupation, and violent legacy. How are we attending to our responsibility to actively work in support of Indigenous sovereignty and towards respectful relations with this place? As we seek comfort from the ever colder climate change-induced days, I'd like to cite Danielle LaFrance, who couldn't be here with us tonight, to launch her phenomenal book, Slow Straight. Remember the view of that which is unsustainable, that which cannot continue, lest we be met by grief. As we look forward to the joy of the holidays with families chosen or blood, let me cite my sister and co-conspirator, Cecily Nicholson. Carceral and climate do not pull apart injustice. Thank you, everyone. We have 5 phenomenal readers tonight. We're going to be starting with Ted Byrne. So I'm going to introduce. So Edward Ted Byrne was born in Hamilton, Ontario, and moved to Vancouver in the late 1960s. For many years, he was a researcher and a later director at the Trade Union Research Bureau. As a collective member of the Kootenai School of Writing for over 15 years, he organized readings, led seminars, wrote grant applications, and edited several issues of the Journal W. He has been an active member of the Lacan Salon and one of its directors since 2010. He has a master's degree in comparative literature from UBC. He translated poetry from French, Old French, German, and Italian. His books include, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Aporia, Beautiful Eyes, Duets, A Flea the Size of Paris, the Old French Fatresses and Fatres with Donato Mancini, and as co-editor of the Recovery of the Public World, Essays on Poetics in honor of Robin Blazer. He gave a paper at the Robert Duncan Centennial Conference at the Sorbonne in 2019. He recently co-edited with Hilda Fernandez an issue of the online journal Contours. The issue, In Times of Play, offered psychoanalytic reflections on the current COVID-19 pandemic. Oh man, still in this pandemic. He is currently working on The Seventh Chamber, a sequel to his book, Beautiful Eyes, as well as papers on the early Renaissance Italian poet Guido Cavalcanti, the Italian philosopher Anne de Formentel, and the poet Norma Cole. So without further ado, could we please welcome Ted Byrne to the stage?
I'm not going to write, I'm just going to read it. But I am certainly grateful to a lot of people for this beautiful book, and people that produced it, and my editor, Katrina Strang, and I'm just going to read. It's Tracery. This morning on Union Street, I saw Arthur Rimbaud on a girl's bicycle, and then close behind him, Jean Seberg. They smiled at me and waved. Then came Antonin Artaud, weaving and shouting curses. None of them wore helmets. I worry about their heads, which I adore. Morning, cold, fingers, tips, and nose tip, cold and damp, behind ears, rims, as a shiver in a dream of contention over magistrate. In the midst of war, the muses are silent. In the middle distance, a culture of alarms, of grand schemes out of hand. This gray noon, capital is empire. 15 cops, one thief, and a crowd. Behind the weather, the storm. Behind a rhetoric of clouds. Behind capital, the war, at odds with the adages arguments concede. A habit broken, taken up again down here. The lyric goes without saying. The news escapes me. Above on the porch, my blue iris, 2 weeks early or 3 years late. Music, invisible, disappears. So strange it's written that music appears and is not heard, reappears without a word. In an age of carts, intercourse is simply a measure of like and unlike. In an era of calculation, commerce is entirely based on the equivalence of like and dislike. Pax Americana. We attend a long and anxious moment of undisturbed calm in our cave of carpets and books that mute the signals as if the stench of the dead had never crossed the imaginary boundary of this new century. Adjectives are insufficient. Verbs are too precise. Untoward, together, insubstantial, they make trial of the heaped objects time leaves behind. This mechanic music holds the elements of its perfection in homeostatic play. The ideologic of its time removes me to dumb reflection, considering the relation of lust to proximity. The ghosts of desire straddle time, which is more fearsome, their allure or their stratagems, clouds of rhetoric, behind which my anxiety and the storm of war. Words are things in poetry and psychosis. They're objects occluded. Never mind, there are others, also blocked and easily found. In Strathcona, I wondered, in this neighborhood, if they came to evict, would the neighbors turn away, or would they mob the evictors like the Egyptian workers I read about this morning in the newspaper? Little houses behind high hedges, secret gardens and green utopian moments, but no squats and no campers in the park. Young girls on bikes catch my eye. You ought to wear a helmet, I think. A shirtless old man with a big red wig and painted face shouts, "It's beautifuler to be a girl." "You got that right," one of them shouts back. On the borderline of day, light disturbs the illuminations of insistent shadows. A comedy half over promises much laughter, says the old man, turning over to hold off the dawn. And laughter's only the half of it. Begin again, Mehitable, nouveau-né, with firm feet and stanzas full of broken furniture. The funnies. I wanted to say more than 9 lines aloud. I meant to say more than 9 lives aloud. No, not that. Not the other. Verdichtung equals condensation, a lessening and a getting slowly to that brickbat Ignaz lobs. Making or finding a knowing, a morning, like this, a broken word reassembled. If the wind is a god, then morning is an afterthought, its breath on my face, a gift from the corridor of leaves. Abandoned, a blessing sought after time. The city questions the wind's disordered ways. Left here to my devices, I stagger my hours, brief service, the politics of lost powers. That which holds us in the long line of day's refusal drops from the horizon, dawn's emerald, not a ring, not a bond, an arrival. Syncopated rhythms of morning divide my attention between you and you, a seeking after and a taking in, hidden behind that cloud. Morning after morning, the residue of dreams inches towards noon. The light dwindles in proportion to the distance it travels. Back across a bridge of sighs, mud-splattered seascape, leaving behind an enchanted forest of hats and scarves and boots, a world made livable by design, a dream of dresses. Morning in night's debt, a harsh breath from the pivot point of generation, simply too loud, with silence, the shattered remnants of law. In a pastiche of morning, the clown repositions the sacred there where reliance on light bears darkness in its fold. When does the time before us become the time that remains? Crossing the bridge of sighs, I'll wait for you on the other side. True love, I have found you because an ox took me, my dear. I still chase the north wind, mistaking it for a thief. That's Vatriquet and Raimondine from Tracery, which I must have translated with Donato. Knowing, not grasping time. Not measure, but vision, finding its internal push. Making visible dehiscent beauty. Morning, rain that drenched the yard, the sun, the night, and us down by Pompey, entangled in the garden shed in the forgetting of time. Morning becomes morn, the scene of dreaming, lost in diminishing dark, a sparkling tableau, firing between words, a done thing or a doing, beginning, along, going, or just plain darkling. It's such a temptation to comment on these poems. The wayward conveyance of these small songs against the fog of morning before the rain, by sleight of hand, where the letters are mobile, a variant tuning by the ear's fine judgment. A wind arose behind the rain and led delight to a hampered walk. The dark sheltered us from the plague, soaking thought with light. a scattering of honey where the voice may lie, sweetened by the breath of another, lines of trembling thought brought back from the juncture of comedy and error. Our tongue renders what the ear hears in its dwindling eternity. Choosing from a lexicon of words half seen in their lucidity, striking a match to briefly light the way across a boundary of our own devising, across a bridge of sighs. Après coup. On the breath of arrows, springtide discloses a mode of signifying, untethered from its pole. What pleasure there is in chaining words, one following another, before and after, toward the punctum. This is from Rilke. How much does what we refuse, the invisible, rule us when life cedes to the invisible ruse and becomes invisible again? Slowly, by dint of attraction, our center is displaced, and the heart takes its turn, grand master of absence. Reading through the looking glass. Nonsense is the backside of reason's certainty, the fugitive path from love's grasp. There is a danger in clarity, a trespass on ordinary pleasure at the point beyond the mirror's reach. Sometimes the moon slips in the dark. A thin cup of borrowed light appears and disappears, capricious and true. The night seems to celebrate approximate time in the remnants of rain. Breath informs measure as it punctuates life, tracing a course through leaves like a breeze of letters, counting borrowed time in discordant intervals, arriving somehow there where the breath is baited. The jouissance of an hour at dawn's late arrival, waking to a conference of birds and falling back into sleep where dreams are still welcomed as thoughts that stave off desire, and the writing on the wall is translated back across time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ted. I'm going to now introduce our second reader, who looks fucking amazing, by the way. Amazing. Following the would-be poetics mapped in Just Like I Like It, Danielle LaFrance arrives at thinking and acting from a position where illusions are just that, illusions and can be destroyed. She authors Friendly Plus Fire and Species Branding. I realize that I don't know if you say the hashtag. Do I say it out loud? Okay. Their fourth poetry collection, hashtag PulseDildo, thinks and writes through the limitless and limitations of sexuality and desire. Focusing on the dildo as a sexual object and a social relation, they ask, how shall you fuck without causing harm? Her poetry and critical writing have appeared in the Capilano Review, Lest, Tripwire, and Organism for Poetic Research, among other journals and magazines. They try to live and hate to rent and work on the stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Please, everybody, welcome Danielle LaFrance.
Thanks, Mercedes. Before I begin, I want to thank Katrina and Ginger and Josh and all of A comrades who are in the room right now, and especially the ones who make sure I have enough air. Erotic fragments for hashtag PostDildo for Chloe Alexandra Thompson. Looking for headless spicy fun. Looking for someone to come inside so I can squeeze it out. Looking to squirm across the kitchen floor like a slug. What am I, if not a concept to stick an entire fist inside? Wait, I don't want fist, I just need a hand. With all digits jizzer-sized. Did you know, depending on dominance, one hand is jealous of another? So if you happen to be ambidextrous, you got it, babe. Looking to feel a sense of cold plus slick metal, slow right or left in. There are those who'd give a pretty penny. Looking for headless plus really horny, I can act dead plus still kick it. Looking for Yogi Bear to steal a picnic basket. I don't need love bullshit, just an endurant jaw. Please do something, anything, before I reenact a kinky relationship with work. Looking to gouge you back. If you want a friends, I can be friends. If you want a shit, I can be shit. Occasional bipedalism transgresses that boundary underfoot. As for arrest, I pull heads off. Looking for a telepath who can read a mind over an unknown span of time. Looking to receive fatal internal injuries from voluntarily submitting to such knowledge. Looking to get ducked. Is it almost too depressing to poet about? Looking for underwater worlds that have far more natural abundance plus diversity than terrestrial worlds. If you have 6 arms plus 2 legs plus enjoy a world that differs markedly from a world above a surface, show up. Switch with post-dildo. At a disco, you treat a hysteric with an Italian word for delight at over 150 BPM. Treat it real good. You encounter a dildo outside a marketplace while I penetrate a self with a whole body, plus give birth to a self. Who does a dildo liberate, plus who does a dildo oppress? Perceive a dildo as a castrated man, a cock replacement, but then you plus I must adhere to a culture you plus I long ago rejected. All sex is half-baked, said a Latin word for essentialism. You once said how it's all about class, and I rebut how it's all about sass. You plus I have a no-holds-barred attitude to what you plus I insert. What if all limbs had minds? What if all dildos were connected by a mainframe other than a silicone manufacturer? Big life questions over yonder. A dichotomy worth pursuing is not queer versus feminist discourse, but power over versus power with. You plus I measure cleats the size of dicks plus call ourselves a pretty skirt. There are no weather delays, there are no generations. Don't kill turfs, grind them to pulps, common people. I mean, concentrate on what matters. A relational model of power acknowledges neither domination nor submission to be total, plus a possibility of being powerful, plus powerless at the same time is possible, too, because of an intersection of intersections. This is not stasis, this is movement, bitch. For my comrades who love the film Rainbow Man, plate of shrimp. If I were a dildo, you would be properly ontological. You would froth like a second carapace, bust clarity open, because I read what you want online without letting go. Albeit a lattice stitch with shrimps, not up to wager when already committed to shutting down machinery. If I were a dildo, I would be 2 meters high, concatenating pessimistically off nihilistic bile. What would emerge if not a stated preference for eugenics? Surplus polywogs emerge dealing with a stated preference for mahogany, straight grain timber. When all the world's fisheries push beyond their biological limit, what will a straight-grained man of Tinder post in 2048? Sexuality is coexistence with a lack of shell life. In 2048, there will be no Tinder, only tender. No human shopping, only sensitivities conspiring together. Is it also neo-fascist to hope Mark Zuckerberg dies after Facebook? Asking revenge for a friend. This same friend asks whether branding some species to flourish over others is wrong. Disease is good for a fish, but what about plenty of smaller fish appearing on an ocean surface, plus predators becoming more titillated at a promise of food? Not everything connects, nor should it. Where is it? There it is. Education is only valuable for keeping a cunt, for Philip Best. Mao Zedong's assertion does not educate, but does investigate a thirst trap for knowledge. You spittle spattle a criminal translation as a blind man gropes his fishies. Such cuntish dispositions stem from a cuntish decision. A cuntish decision stems from a cuntish judgment, plus a cuntish judgment stems from a Thoreau, plus necessary reconnaissance, plus from poundering on, plus piercing together a data of various cunts gathered through reconnaissance, with zeal a thirst strap for knowledge as hobbycock. Does a hobby horse have a hickory dick? Does a fish still have fellow feelings after discarding a drowsy dross? All these applicable accounts Marlowe minds already made preceding a study of imaginary dyes, besides a study working out plant sex organs, completes a process of knowing a situation's visions, tastes, refusals, plus projects, petrarches an enemy's situation, retaining a true fool edging up closer to a butts cracked pedal, eliminating false consciousness so as to stick it to limits of investigative capacity measured by weight gain frenzy, threatening to smack upside a head with a dislodged bookcase. Thank you for not pushing all this oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, plus phosphorus up a fucking bookcase. You grabbed all this pot-belly, snurgling, pathetic. Thank you for applying all these possible plus necessary methods of reconnaissance, campaigning about adoring a condom after sex, writing planners, speak detergently so as to manner a social cipher, swelling to pin down a laser, marks on papyrus. A preposition threads one word to another so a baby understands a reference other than mama. Remain superficial or get to a cunt-treat essence, or a walnut replaces this throat, filling it with accounts of one's shelves. Silence is rights. When I finally lobby this shelf to speak, a decision becomes nil from heavy drinking. So I drink only water. And as a special treat, filth. We're not done. Post-dildo or plagiarizing Paul B. Preciado. I have to be honest, a word for cund is a palatial cat paw. In a sense, a finely tuned word has you plus I squill with delight. How an errant sperm can fuck a uterus's life plus body plus a spermatozoan shoot is fine. So you plus I write not for offspring. File confessional cum rags under a governor general's award. As a word, dildo designates all kinds of technologies of gender and sex that resist a normative production of a body and its pleasures. I prefer not to appetite such things, rather marinate imagination with renounced family holidays in preference for a shared agreement with vanity. You plus I draw red lines up plus down forearms. You plus I flesh these sacks a tadpole more seriously after a dash of unclaimed prescriptions. I think you plus I wish to marry, not with one another, but with writing about a body as a dildoscape, a living surface where dildos are inscribed. So, with a prehensile dildo strapped to a chin like a violin, I draw more dildos on all these forearms, no longer concerned with a faint hint of previous lines, let alone what was said before. Somewhere along a line, a relative will ask, well, what does it mean to consider a body as a dildoscape, a living surface where dildos are inscribed? It means you plus I pick up where you plus I left off. You plus I cannot afford to love anymore within a heteronormative regime. If writing is a dildo of metaphysics of presence, then post-dildo is writing a sweet presence of action, of yearning. I imagine any common drug user I know, including you plus I with a PhD in brilliance. I don't know anything more than what is drawn up plus down a forearm. I don't want to know more. Sign manifestos until a signature signs itself. Not only do you plus I use a dildo, you plus I adorn a funny tinfoil hat while becoming one. Yoked together my homo plus my normative, my homo plus my national, declare you plus I all wholes willing to. Dildo the cum commodity, okay guys, I really need some help. Meanwhile, post-dildo rebels against history, fingering coded proponents of symbolic orders. This is embarrassing. Away an eye gushes so hard by Rizalka's humming hummers, crash cargo ships, carry loots down abyssal depths. Meanwhile, dildos are on a rise. You temper, I goosh, this popular commodity. Dildo is often listed as of unknown origin, plus has a secondary definition that applies to a stupid or ridiculous person. After you, stupid. Meanwhile, dildo-fueled inspirational bricolage could alter what is sexy about sexuality. Praxis is praxis, endeavoring to build upon contradiction where a dildo liberates plus alienates. Meanwhile, you plus I start dildo-splaining that a dildo isn't a substitute but an emotional support animal. Meanwhile, you plus I are ready-made prosthetics available plus detached from any supposed owner who ridicules public beggary. Meanwhile, you plus I like a word cock, plus like to privilege language. As the saying goes, dildos don't kill people, people kill dildos. Anyone can fashion a dildo with a right wallet for a right price tag. Anyone can savor time with a right Saturn. Meanwhile, desperate to understand a position in encountering a new sex, a new intimacy, you plus I murder old safe words. Right now, Anchors can be raised to brave, unknown, fantastical significances. Odysseus can be unbound, plus drowned, plus velvet underground.
All right, it is my pleasure to introduce our next reader, Annie Ross. Annie Ross is a Maya-Irish artist and poet who works with and in communities and is in love with Mother Earth and all of her natural and supernatural beings. Her first poetry collection is Pots and Other Living Beings, and the poems from that collection hint at and reflect upon food, arts, schools, families, family farms, and alternate histories people could have enjoyed if our resources, imagination, time, and energy had been directed to life in all of its forms. Please, everybody, welcome Annie Ross.
Good evening. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I wish I memorized poems. It's easier than reading from a page. I find somehow the pages, I don't know. But anyway, thank you, Talon, everyone at Talon. You're awesome. I love you. You're so good to me. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for the gift of your time being here together. You'll have to tell me when I'm out of time, because I lose it. I had picked ones that I don't necessarily like. But I thought they'd, I thought, you know, what are you going to do? Oh, not really. Anyway, and it's really hard to follow the first two readers. You guys are really amazing. Ted and Danielle, I appreciate your reading, and I know the other readers, and Cecily, would be wonderful too. Thank you. The first one is Pick Up. Pick up your cross, 4 crossed logs, 4 sacred directions, whirling power of creation, always recreating, remaking, new branched tree of life, many petaled sweet berries, pollen. Pick up your painted sign, walking stick, paddle, your glad rags, newly woven dog hair, cotton wool, grass cloaks, shoes if you have them, our hard-soled feet. We will never stop looking for you. We will never stop defending you. Arresting us will not stop us from fighting for our land. My weaving axe is near my bed and in my car. No one's victim, at the ready in case I find a stormed down tree, splintered beauty, and ask for bark, promise to live again as a basket. Or those cutting forest, find me first. Don't cry, fight. My are your inability to obey lawless injunctions, genocidal instructions, ensures I, we, they may have a chance fulfill Creator's goal to live, survive, thrive on with this, our one true magnificent mother. Heirloom sewing hammers, embroider all past, present, gifts, spirit, tomorrows. Stitch it all back together, a stitch at a time. Peace would be made this way. A new day will be now, now, now. Come on with it. Scissors nearly frozen from lack of use. Reopen to their work. Cut cloth into clothing. Open, open, open this land defense. In honor of the previous 2 readings, there's a section in here that was actually published in the personals column of the Georgia Straight. And so it's entitled, I Saw You, personals column. You are so painfully handsome. Everyone stares. You were wearing a bark suit, the type of which bears are made. I ate bark one winter awaiting first berry shoots. You smell like spring, like rain, like hopeful rivers, full bellies. I am in love with you so hard. Woman with a mirror. Naked beauty goddess in Fairy Creek. She held up a large mirror, and when he RCMP saw his own reflection, he snarled at himself. She covered in Mother Earth dirt, awaiting the handcuffs with the smile of a saint, those persecuted for loving supernaturals. I wish I were there, with you and yours, but I am nothing and no one. The sight of an engine makes me leap, as do gazelles and those them us we easily spooked by bad smells. I wish we could meet, and I would fashion your hair into 2 lovely braids with red cotton ribbon. Camp cook. Your long-fingered hands soothe rosemary, chamomile, sage into willing bundles, each a family of diversities, comforted their own and their compatriots, aroma, force, usefulness. Every pot and pan clean and ready, or filled with food for the front lines. Your face is smooth, clean and clear as a jar of water, with the sun reflecting from behind. Hey, baby. Serene calm, a state of being pursued by cloud-dwelling monks, emanates freely, easily from your mama and your perfect sky-eyed kin. Our destiny comes in salted tides, iridescent fish, fur-shine mammals, stars, and every growing being. Openly we meet with sweeping, rushing waves, our tireless, repetitive embrace every day, every night. Our today we make is tomorrow's beautiful peace. Heavy sigh. I saw you, I lost you. Every day we met one another, and every day we breathed hello, in awe, in love, majesty. You, your emerald beingness, you would wave at me as if I were the only one in this vast panoply of souls. Now in place of your cool, dark abode, a gravel lot. I look for you everywhere, even for your relatives. Where on earth could you have gone? I dare not see. I plant a seed from a cone, knowing I will wait lifetimes for your return, my beloved. Forced disappearance. I tend my field on this gray day, the time when, where winter and spring mate, one destined to say goodbye, the other hello. These cucumbers are doomed to freeze. A helicopter suspended hurts he who holds, and the spaces in my body. It slices its way north, south, east, west, unholy pounding tour to all far 4 corners. A whale in our indigo sea turns as I do to look up from compost, seeds, blameless home. Are my friends under arrest? Are you coming to kill us, our kind, our land? Will someone please turn you off? Oh, won't you please shut up? Would it kill you to stop killing us? Stop. All you need to do is stop. Now where to you, high as a kite, you chop Ishtapeke's face into shrapnel, feathered serpents, hard worker twins who hold ice poles together, split. All for you, doomed, falling empire. Village of my mother caught unaware, our children plants, our baby's baby, everyone burns. Proud army shoots every moving, breathing, blinking being, murder assembly of sacred souls. No deer, no spotted cat, no rat, not a hummingbird, fluttering hearts or woven ones, safe, able, allowed. Your hands, your hearts, helicopter who made you, soldiers who trained you. Why are my families extinct? Why I have no home? Why do I have no home to where I may return? No plaza, no playa, nowhere to join old dirt-colored bones. Please stop asking me where I am from. We counted hundreds of thousands of starry night visions during day and into our sleep, asteroids of flame, daylight shadows of old supernaturals with no predictable shape, spirit, deer, dragonfly, field full of rabbits. If I count to 20 in practice of our giant celestial wheel, when shall you disappear? Are you now landing on my father's roof?
Are those sounds your soldiers' feet? Our roofs crunching, dried mud, ceiling powder down, a fallen nest. These extended families, these, I mean. Your hand is an impending flood, washed out food garden, corn, greens, compatriots, wedded to our big empty bellies. We exist in dreams, stars, luminous oceans. We remember our midnight ancestor visiting. She slid her once human feet across the hard-packed earth floor, awakening loudly but calmly, slid her hard clay cup across our wooden table, pouring our terracotta pitcher full from springs. Direct action crew. Land defense is survival. Land defense is our inherent right to life, to meet responsibilities to all lives, possibilities. Sovereignty is fierce love. Fish, self-determined, no one may command, give, go, stay away, come back, feed us, make us grow, make us real, make this earth real, perfect, shameless. They decide, right action, right thought, right livelihood. All we have in return is love and thanks. I bow to you in humility. Fish eyes and raven bellies, stew meat means from salt to fresh to live again as wolves, bears, tree roots, soil sprouts, perfectly useful teeth. Salmon, having made new salmon, turn to the skies, our shared eternal next home, in the latest turn, tune, turn. Breath leaves up, becoming shooting stars, pine mushroom spores. Colorful decay, slippery guts, flies and bees. Their death smell is a breakfast bell to fox, mammal, insect, bird feast, gathering. Delights, dead fish eyes, contemplate life's purpose, having reached nirvana, hero's journey, fulfilled. And the last one, Oh Canada, subtitled Heartsick on the Occasion of the Latest Armed Invasion Against Indigenous Peoples, Places, Laws, or Ode to a Nosegay. An event happened, and there was a grouping of mucky mucks at where I work in the evening, and this is a poem that came out of that. Oh Canada. A small bunch of flowers, gorgeous as a spotted towhee, rests, awaits, on a tray atop other bunches made of bunches, roses, ferns, babies' breath. I eye them as if cake. May I have one? They appear to be orphaned, all pretty, perfect, made, blossomed this way. No, these are for the important ones, him, her, the other. Oh yes, of course. Familiar, heavy heart. Sorry, I understand, I do. Director sees me, reads my name badge, sneers and walks away. Hello, Mother, are you here? She fought for every little bit. The room is flashing from suited smiles, hip and conservative stylish jeers, all shake hands congratulating self. Meanwhile, black mold grows, petroleum fills teapots, flame retardants in Arctic mother's milk. Swift, sorry, lost diesel fills camas beds and kindergarten basements. Fumes, want, made from greed. I used to be and am expected to cower, feel shame by those shameless regime collaborators, their orders of, from Canada, unable to, repulsed by, mute in their anger towards birds. Thank you.
Annie, thank you so much. That was incredible. I'd like to introduce our next reader. Finalist for the 2008 Governor General's Award for his second book of poetry, Noise from the Laundry, Weyman Chan divides his time between writing, family, electronic micrographs, and non sequitur fluxes in time-space brought on by insomnia. As a poetry editor of Calgary's experimental literary magazine, Filling Station, he's convinced that alien intelligence has already nested in every branch of our language tree. His fifth book of poetry, Human Tissue, A Primer for Not Knowing, examines rage and the question of origin. His chapbook, Isobars, was published in 2017 as part of the Loft on 8 press series, Inner City Stories. Please, everybody, welcome Weyman.
I always feel that there's time issues, these things. So, hi June, hi Janine, hi Stephanie. You guys are my everything from Calgary. And Jim, my friend who's taking care of my cats, Heisenberg and Faraday. And yeah. And so I also want to just do a quick thank you to Talonbooks, my editors, Charles Simard, Katrina Strang, book editor or book designer Les Smith, Kevin Williams, the others, Darren and Aaron and Spencer, everybody else there, and especially to somebody who read an earlier draft of this book, who's Meredith Quartermain, who I just wouldn't have been able to get the same book without her editorial guidance. So thank you, you guys. So this book was started 6 years ago. It honors my friend and Calgary Métis poet Sharon Prue, who passed away 6 years ago from cancer. We both shared a time in our childhoods when we had flown out of our bodies in order to compartmentalize trauma. And the return to our bodies was a lifelong key to our healing, and the result is this book. So I'm just going to... And part of the whole thing about compartmentalizing and flying out of your body is you land in various voices. So the first poem I'm going to read is where I'm looking, my adult self is looking down on my 3-year-old self, and I am the son speaking to the young boy. The son speaks to his childhood. Mired in the Brahmin folds of deep distance, I watched you cry. You cry easily, for the kindness of strangers seems paced, like shovel sounds of another world. Airdrie to Calgary, you kept pointing at my weak stabs behind low cloud. Barely 3, your foster family explained to you, not your brother, that I had my PJs on. Night would arrive soon, convex and upturned on your skin. An occasional moo queried the farm. Please don't over-anglicize this family whose son would go on to abuse your brother. You were safe because Tim didn't want a boy who shit his pants all the time. Midsummer heat. Stooped as a blank page, you watch me cross the sky. Then you stand for hours behind the garage, spruce shade dappling the dogs who would not come near. They knew your fondness for clenching anything fur. There's a clear cup on the sill that catches morning light, and that's the reason for breasts. Childhood, mutla, mutli, fussy 3s and 4s, count 3 fingers minus you. Don't forget to bless Uncle Barry, bless Auntie Jill, not Tim. Can Anglicans tell when one prayer is missing? Without blinking, you tried to catch me, a failed conjurer. You mistook my warmth for atonement. I was only light. I had nothing to give you. Wrenched from the moon's reflective cool, you grew up before my eyes. For a time, you forgot who I was, and I felt safe, so I returned to bossing the sky. Night splits off the dying patina. Mutla, mutli, will not occasion any sleep where a mother is driven off. Her bother refutes us, and now you wish on me again. From one considered form to another, you cling needlessly. If you clench your eyes, I'll knit my way in. At worst, I stand for all things visible. Dare to look away. Swaddle your unicorn, stuff it with enough hope that proves Earth isn't a jury of one. Allow me to rescind your make-believe. But even as I say this, you look away. Such scorn cheapens us. Read the white paper, Sharon said. Last year's rose hips hung like buboes along the bow. In search of sweetgrass, mountain snows, scorch whiteness that's not a threat. Devices flower up to their replacement. Dew star, gopher. I too am split from monster. City lights ungloom those boys slaked at doorways verdant with throat. Sharon, what grasslings. I'd gladly stake my showers on April, sniffing out a dog's diary, owl radar on hair, shuttling her camo over lovage and squirrel nuts, dead kindling that helped you fly above the tree line. If sorrow is a stomach in a pond or a clavicle, neither beside nor behind, if sorrow is an op-ed that helped me not die, will you witness back at me? That crowing blanket that helped you fly above your own terror? Sharon, if I get lost, if parchment was ever innocent of its writ, to not have at least 5 tricks played on you, if Foucault's panopticon threw the key away, no. Hiding place for the magpie bridge between Earth's unplanned birth and this white monster who cries rat, though Earth carbon copied me to be a small-scale ambition. If loam, you lie unseen, undrummed from Contumely's breeze, tundra avens, if. Love, don't say where or when. She copies us, Sharon, then strikes us down in fledgling colors of mud's tomorrows. If mola, stepmom's term for makes no sense, shed the diacritical transcriptase of its outdated toisan, would you witness back at me? I consent to bones under our Canadian shield, forsakens, forsworn to approximate hours, infratectonic to the skin, post-truck sign, post-truck porcupine. A sick kid's television network passes my chastity to some climate odor, autistic to the speaking likeness of beasts, our co-redacted citizens, turned roadkill on ever-privatized ground, penetrating, flutter. Am I both? The wronged gerund, its capillary for next day's therapy trigger. Huzzah! My schooling couldn't have buggered less. What? Of what? I asked. My Tetris anxious pronouns berefting this poem. I apologize to this land, asking my skin, what are you? A chain of fishes? A present, active, sad upbringing? A toy unicorn I supped on as a boy till grammars shed my velvet horn? Duration's carbon sink. A back hauler of nuclei worrying at the bus stop where my skin is not up for grabs. Instead of a body to be without, subsisting on fits and solaces, I grub analytics from an electron microscope's sweaty lactation, such that not one canoe of grief sailed past me today. The lanthanide series overwrote the industrial seam, focusing on small worlds startled from spit, split arches and asphalt chinooks. Should the microplastics of constipation signify that fickle sauce, that dread gene I've no right to stray into? Science missing its calluses, my mother can't hear me, quizmaster to my own Jeopardy episode. What is wordless tumors? You, she can't cue the daily double's neural disclaimer. It begs to differ, looking back is weak. But I want to say, Sharon, sometimes I walk in you when perishing haunts itself. Aren't we all trivial methane trapped lungs that cells misspell to join the angels? I killed mom to leapfrog. The child's wish soars hatched from clouds you call grandmother, stuffing such magic in our heads. Like how whirligigs in a trailer park marry our faces to that water dream, that land for strata stole from some deeper meditation, starving to fit its people. Your reason to visit, mine to stay. Okay. Sorry. Just have to. Okay. Ni bunga nai fly du mot a chi nam foi vong. Ni bunga nai fly du mot a means, why are you sloshing that shit around? Ni bung is you carrying. Nai fly, onomatopoeic for reckless messiness. Dumont sticks it to the ether of common sense and moral capacity. Ni bunga nai hlai Dumont a chinam foi vong. Chin refers to dust, but coincidentally in Toisan, Chin is Chan, my surname. I am dust. My first name in Toisanese means great people. Great people of dust I am. Nam Phoi Vong means messily scattered and inhaled to the point of choking. Ni bunga nai hlai dumot a chi nam Phoi Vong. Yes, great people of dust. I see in the curve of my snowshoe the buried nations we fucked, transmigrated tobaccalists. Ni bunga nai hlai dumot a chi nam Phoi Vong began as my stepmom's favorite whirlwind phrase to marshal order in the house, to be fought and won at all costs when tasked with raising 4 dissolute ragamuffins who were not hers. She a tidy freak. So now many tidy nations freaking, cleaning and burying, looking both ways, feet tapping down the tap-worthy, scattered and inhaled, earth diggers, earth doormats, earth forgetters, crop rotated and proofed to confound the succulent. Okay. This one's called What Would a Gopher Call Writing on Stone? And this is the voice of my spirit twin, as both Sharon and I are kind of floating in this nether world. And this is her voice. I know that this is you sneaking back inside me. Automatic writing, your hand reaching up through my spine and into my mouth. But let me take off this gopher face and say what I need to say as me. Please return to your body, Weyman. I will help you put back the empty holes of your dad, your granddad. It's your turn to speak, but not as your mom, not as your stepmom. No more on behalf of a brother who had to wear that terror to protect someone else in your family. I get that. Remember that guy in the white shirt, bag lunch in hand, holding up a tank column? You admired him. His act bigger than his being or its death. You and I met at the Milk River, wading sunset, the Badlands hoodoos all around us, before Pangea split. Guess what? I'm still here. A treaty with the land is a promise for all, to fill the sky yet curl inside a water drop. That isn't just for dragons. Bliss and atoms, torn to bits and flowing together again, is proof that there's no failure, just reprieve. And though we're all free, and you are an ally of a world removed from the wronged world, and the sky asks nothing of you when you see others' daymares lining the sales rack at night, should or shouldn't dally with the usual lip service to atrocity, my boy, then you are not free. And the last poem. And you have to know one thing, is that Sharon Prue, she spelled her first name with 2 R's, so she would always introduce herself as, I'm Sharon with 2 R's. So, says Sharon speaking as Gopher. Oh, and then in one of her books, she takes on a persona in the whole book called Gopher with an F. So anyway, says Sharon speaking as Gopher, missing an F. Our long story is a sliding scale where tree lands are given up for 10 promises per visit, no indexing for inflation. We are 2.5 centuries past those paltry sums they still bury us in. Once upon a time, there was a forest deep inland where mothers from miles around buried their plowshares. By nightfall, their industry wielded moonstone axes, hacking the roots of their alphabet to a rainbow's end that would assume the whole. They grew fur and claws to become diggers of a great hole, flinging snow at Chinooks while empire recused the above world's battle, such that not even the rice paddy or its bird spies could see or hear where those digging women went, never to return to their families, says Sharon speaking as Gopher. This is how a deep hole becomes a jig. This is how restless ones mark resting places like a hand pushes through time markers. In the year of lost children, tiny breaths clenched those closed flowers, found without slaughter, sleeping. There was no slaughter, just drop the S, and what you get is laughter, also missing an F. Thank you.
She was the Ellen and Warren Tolman Writer-in-Residence at Simon Fraser University and the Writer-in-Residence at the University of Windsor. She teaches at Emily Carr University of Art and Design and collaborates with community impacted by carcerality and food insecurity. I just want to say that it's been my total honor to have my feet on the ground and my hands in the dirt with you, Cecily, when you do this work. I love you.
Thanks, Merce. Thank you. Thank you for hosting. Sound okay at the back there? All right. So thank you, first of all, to Talon. All the names are mentioned tonight, but just the House of Talon, the family of Talon, all you do. I appreciate it so much. My thanks. You set out to write your thanks in the back of a book, and it's always leaving out so many people. But I realized when it went to print that I really left out somebody that really should have been in there, and that's I want to shout out Louis Cabri, who has hosted me a few times in Windsor in really important generative moments, but and more recently as a writer-in-residence, doing that online. So sorry, Louis, should have been thanked here a little more formally. I want to shout out my husband, Jeff, thanks. I mean, it ain't easy. I mean, I don't know, generally being my husband, being a husband of a poet, I don't know. But I can't do it without you. And Merce, I would have thanked you too, so at the top and on the bottom. And you should judge this book by its cover, absolutely. I'm so honored to have Jan Wade in the room, whose incredible piece, Breathe, this is a sample of. It's held in the permanent collection at Vancouver Art Gallery, finally working to recognize at a level that I think this artist and others deserve. So just so thrilled that this could be on this cover. It fits so well. Oh, and the other readers, you were amazing. Was it amazing? Yeah, sorry. Well, it's incredible to be nervous after all these years, but here it is. For my brother Daniel B., playing live at the Stampede, and love to Carolyn G., wherever you are. Carver, a hand in relief. Place is my hand on the relief cast of Carver. The cast is cool. Hand vibrates to feel the whole surface at once memory and indent sense of prints. Extent charged. Tips through index and middle metacarpals. It was the passing shadow of a bird. At rest, my hand settling on Hathaway's sculpture. Associatory, simple elements, the store of atmosphere, pounds of water brought as property to situate within genealogy, giving backs to land and intellectual and art history, idle moments put to gathering, to care, to share, food, to not solely succumb to the logics of land, crop, harvest, as required by institutions of slavery and capital. The country, I can't not hear it now, wears a rich and luxuriant aspect, says Frederick Douglass. Okay, shoot. Thank you, Danielle. 1st of August celebration at Dawn Settlement, Canada West, public meeting at Chatham. A visit to the Elgin Settlement at Buxton, Frederick Douglass's paper, writing in August 11th, 1854. In 1854, Frederick Douglass set out from Rochester, New York to attend a gathering to mark the 20-year anniversary of the West India Emancipation, the 1st of August celebration at Dawn Settlement for fugitive slaves, traveling most of the 300-mile journey by rail, except 16 miles between Chatham and the settlement referred to, by wagon. Douglas journeyed through the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, the Mississauga, the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, the Miami Nations, to arrive at the so-called historic county of Kent. About that 1854 journey, Douglas remarks, "In regard to the place itself, it is one of the most beautiful and desirable localities for agriculture, commerce, and education which we know of in Canada West. I reflect further on fugitivity of that time and upon life in the near aftermath of slavery as the Dominion of Canada formed. The language and logics of farm stem from structures of settler colonialism, even if they embody emancipatory practices, and this, for me, makes for complicated dreams, sufficiently free from the fatigue of this journey, rounding a corner to song of the lark. The light so familiar I had to sit, for many voices, starts, a moth, a lit, a rhetorical Du Bois, faltering inches of progress, the dawning, as the sundial says to the soil, your auntie up the road just now recalls, to drop quietly in what may be considered no velvet road, sun slow reaches by wagon over tracks, the soil losing time and time again to corn. History as decomposition, field against nature, natural anchored in rot, pasturage, planting, regeneration plots to pick rocks in tandem with machines. My first job was walking in formation, a child field hand alert to small rocks, frost heaved to the surface. Behind the barn, across the tree line and a ditch, distinguishing property, out corn rows along thin strips of habitat, patched to neutral, hand-me-downs, pry apart fence wires to go between, tilting gusts, thin riparian trunks. By a near-dry creek folds a cabin, collapsed and cellarless on the ground. Tempers dim, breathing through the nose, shoulders bare, cooling, back amid a chorus of whirs, grasses shake and curl, sweet and pounceable body. I can feel my place in extraction, hear how to center, how hard to decenter, discourse that's found me, determining. In an arrival of dark evening stars, Venus casts shadow on the dark firmament. Well black on the nether side, it will rain. To practice, given the service of labors, herein my reallocated labor, passages via free gardens to honor, fish pepper plants made way to Chesapeake table settings. Horace Pippin, a painter, gave seeds to H. Ralph Weaver, a beekeeper. A voice that will clamor for community at Emma's Acres, engaging in restorative justice, holding a free, aspiring, organic, and no-till green space. Emma's Acres provides food for families of incarcerated people and low-income families living in the food-insecure city of Mission. I mean, really, though, every city is food insecure these days, is it not? In an area currently known as the Fraser Valley in the Pacific Northwest. These last few years volunteering with a farm led by people who were formerly incarcerated, I've engaged in correspondence, sometimes poetic, with community inside. The light in here. I should stay in this greenhouse all the time. The light is the third lake you had to run early morning, save quartering all afternoon or risk a catch of storm. This year, I will remember and make a habit of watering the lettuce and the Detroit special beets that run the balcony. A magnificent row, witnessed and admired on a hotbed as sprouts. It's that kind of light in here. Here to you. From here to you. Rock piles. How my brother and I, the youngest, Imagine stories in and of the dirt as it descends. Which bones and artifacts will become present? The butterfly stone fossils become possessions. Which culture were we supposed to make fun of ourselves? The dirty fingers, brown and browner, overturn new rocks in the rock pile, freer from restraint, the mindsets of diggers on our common. Hunting in rock piles, the light stretched longer, enough to risk our feet catching crags of dark matter, and we formed adjacent rock beds made of rocks, and we set ourselves in to watch the sundown. Over and over, the same fields. The sky cast bush shadows an acre off relief in a thin band of horizon. Stars rose brightly and never set, circling the best days. A glow filled our hearts as if our homeland, hometown. Well, and finally, after winter nights, paved roads whitened completely as flakes piled up past cladding and through ditches, the snow fence bending, one ruddy, weak slat after another against the draft whose very purpose seemed to penetrate. The fences figure again and again, for now, iron rods and constant burrows of rust chronicling weather. Winter such as this pushed deeper into spring, flattening buds in their long burst of fragrance, a relief, the time between bird calls lessening. Relief when finally the smell of mud struck consciousness, like lilacs, only sweeter. As the heat of the sun registered warmth on skin, trickles of water coursed the driveway, rutting a lower ditch as the water table began to rise. Wells kept in wells, liberation to lifers, burst of cells, bust of lings, tamp the surface, tender. Watery gnarls, irrigation systems, find the roots as they found us, with our fistfuls of vegetables, shapes caked in dirt. For a tired body can sleep. My nail grit fingertip relief against tomato blood lost blooms for days. The endorphins are a cloudy crimson. A 3-pepper hot sauce in a citrus brine. And in the cupboard, smoked peppers from last fall infused with a snip of lilac on the counter. My home and its kitchen are close. Almost summer, our great hearts I open onto every day we open. Thank you for listening so carefully.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Cecily. That was incredible. Can we give it up for all of our readers, please? So for Ted, for Danielle, for Annie, for Weyman, for Cecily.